Well, welcome to another edition of More Bad News, brought to you as always by Camel Cigarettes. Remember that more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. And for those of you who expressed doubt in the chat last time, let me clarify that this was entirely true. The Camel's brand was introduced in 1917, and until it was replaced by Marlboro's in 1972, Camel's was America's favorite choice of cigarette. It wasn't just that more doctors smoked Camels. More lawyers and truck drivers smoke Camels. I smoke Camels. Camels were the best-selling brand in America. They dominated the market. So I wouldn't be advertising something I didn't believe in. And here's the point of the Camel's 30-day challenge. Smoke Camels for 30 days and see for yourself. Don't let anyone tell you what is true about smoking tobacco. It's much more complex than just the health effects of smoking. I would remind you that this is a sacred leaf and that it is still sacred and still cherished by Native peoples. When I went to ask Francis for a blessing, I brought him a pouch of tobacco. When you're out hunting and you take a deer, you leave tobacco. For thousands of years, Native peoples have smoked tobacco in their ceremonial pipes. And when I asked Francis about tobacco causing cancer, he said it wasn't the tobacco, it was the misuse of something that's sacred. It's like wine for the Jews. As long as you use it as prescribed by your tradition, a cup of wine on Friday night to sanctify the Sabbath, you think about it. The Torah forbids work from Friday to Saturday evening, no work under penalty of death. That's pretty serious. And for my Zeta, this was a real challenge in America because you couldn't get a job, you had to make a living, and everybody wanted you to work on Shabbos. But think about the tradition. You light candles, you drink wine, you have a great meal. So Shabbos is made for the promotion of a large family. It's not made to produce alcoholics. And as part of Native culture, Francis said, it didn't cause health problems. We know, in fact, that Native peoples were, in general, uh, uh, didn't suffer from the dreadful diseases that the rest of the world had. They were much healthier in general than the Europeans, despite the fact that they smoked. So last week I mentioned my friend Gordon Henry. He teaches at Michigan State University in Lansing, and he's the director of the creative writing program there. And here I just wanted to show you, this is his first novel, A Light People. And so, I recommend it, published in 1994. But besides the Sundance, I used to go to Gordy's Sweat Lodge ceremonies where we passed around the pipe that had tobacco and a little sweetgrass in it. And after smoking, we went into the sweat. And as I understand it, the combination of the tobacco and the sweat helps to cleanse the body. So where did all this negativity about smoking start? It started with Adolf Hitler. That's right. Here, let me show you. This is a book. This is also a friend of mine, Robert Proctor, and this book is The Nazi War on Cancer. And in 1999, it turns out that a generation before the Surgeon General's 1964 report, in the 1930s, Hitler's government launched a major modern health campaign to convince the German people to stop smoking. They did groundbreaking research on the links between smoking and all sorts of diseases. So this whole campaign against tobacco was a Nazi conspiracy to begin with. You don't want to have anything to do with Nazis, so take the Camel's challenge. Smoke Camels for 30 days and see for yourself what this ancient sacred intoxicant can do for you. Okay, so today is Shavuos B'Tammuz. It's the 17th day of the month of Tammuz in the year 5782. That's what the year is now. You people are in 2022. You're thousands of years behind us and you're never going to catch up. On the 17th of Tammuz in the year 3338, that's 2,444 years ago, the walls of Jerusalem were breached by the armies of Nebuchadnezzar. 3 weeks later, on the 9th of Av, the temple was destroyed. Today we fast. Today's a fast day, and over the next 3 weeks we mourn, and on Tisha B'Av we fast like we do on Yom Kippur, a complete fast. My fast today is a partial fast, and it only goes till the evening. I'm a little food to take my pills and things, so it's not as serious a fast as Tisha B'Av. I wouldn't have anything. This is also the yortzeit of my brother Marty, died a homeless psychotic in Cook County Hospital in Chicago on July 2nd, 1999. Well, it's been another bad week of bad news. Big in the news this week was the story of that 10-year-old rape victim denied the ability to get an abortion, but her rapist brought her out of state where she could get an abortion. And all sorts of horror stories abound. As reported in Science magazine, abortion bans kill people in lots of different horrible ways. That's a quote from Science magazine. I get most of my bad news from Science magazine. But there was also this week stunningly good news from the James Webb Space Telescope. I urge you to go take a look at the breathtaking images that were produced and the explanations. They're easy to find on many YouTubes on them. What I was stunned by was the fact that they were able to see in a deep field one tiny little red dot, which was a galaxy 13.1 billion light years away from us, which means that it was 13.1 billion years in the past. That's like really the beginnings of light, in the universe. The universe is about 13.7 billion. So this is really early light. So just now, as our species sinks to oblivion, before we disappear forever, leaving not a trace of our existence, we get this very first look at the universe right after creation. I tell you, it's just a joy. This week, I wanted to share with you a wonderful video, a portion of which is available on YouTube. I recorded it on a DVD in the 1990s, so I have the whole thing, but there's a 13-minute segment of it. And if you go to YouTube and you just search for The Search for Ancient America, The Search for Ancient America, it was produced by WQED in Pittsburgh in association with the National Academy of Sciences, so it's first-rate science. So the video is an early compilation of what we had discovered about the Paleo-Indians and the Great Migration that represented the peopling of this continent. The original peoples who came to populate the continent originated with a foundational population who migrated across the land bridge. It was more like a continent than a bridge that connected Asia to America. And across this land came a few thousand original settlers. Their descendants all bear the genetic markers of the early founders, and the peoples of the Americas were distinctly different in their mitochondrial DNA to other peoples on the planet. Today, everybody's all mixed up, but back in the day, red people were a distinct human group. And if you want to know more about that, this is a book just published, 2022. It's the it's the Genetic History of the Americas by Jennifer Raph, and wonderful book. So the original people triumphed over temperatures that plunged below 50 degrees, below zero. With domesticated dogs as pack animals, they moved across the Americas generation after generation, pushing further south through the Pacific coast and deeper into the continent until they got to Patagonia, to the edge of South America. For today, what I want to do is focus on a group of Paleo-Indians who lived in Florida, in a place called Windover. Here it's today's my book day. So this is it. This is a wonderful museum book edited by Glenn Dorn. It's Windover, a multidisciplinary investigation of an early archaic Florida cemetery. So it was a cemetery. It was 7,000-year-old cemetery. And here's the story. In 1982, a backhoe driver working for the Windover Construction Company to clear a bog for a road unearthed a skeleton. And when it turned out to be a prehistoric skeleton, researchers from the University of Florida were called in. The preservation of the remains was unparalleled. As the dig began, they would begin to wonder at the enormity of the discovery. Here at Windover, they uncovered 170 individuals. It was a cemetery. Director of the dig, Glenn Dorn, spent the entire rest of his career analyzing on this cemetery. analyzing the material. He said, quote, "We were really excited because these remains were dated from about 7,200 years before present. And the thing that struck us even after the first visit was the fact that the skeletal materials were so well preserved. Most of the soils in Florida are very acidic, but this material was really good shape. Over the course of 3 years, the carefully assembled remains were gathered together to go over a team of experts at the University of Florida in Tallahassee. The skeletal remains showed similarities, which convinced everybody that these were related peoples. This was a family cemetery. Glenn Doran tells the story of a child that was totally impaired, could not contribute to the community, yet from the skeletal evidence, it was clear that his people were determined to keep him alive. He suffered from a birth defect, opening in the spine called spina bifida, which even today is very difficult to deal with. Even today, it's hard to keep a child alive like this. And this child they kept alive till about 12, 14 years old. The condition would lead to terrible loss of bone. The child was in his early teens when he finally succumbed. Archaeologists have found remarkable evidence of compassion in a society 7,000 years old. And we should not overlook the ability that they had to fight infection and deal with this terrible terminal disease. And this was not a large tribe, so the burden must have been significant. When I would ask my students over the years why they thought they did this, many students said it was probably because the child was the son of a chief. The idea that you would simply care for a child of yours, whether he was the son of a chief or not, because you're a human being, didn't seem to occur to my students. As excavations continued, research discovered dramatic examples of just how thoroughly the bog had preserved human remains and artifacts. For example, they found a brain inside a skull. But at the University of Pittsburgh, Rhonda Anderson and James Adovazio analyzed the mysterious substance found at the bog. Technicians with powerful microscopes revealed the unmistakable ends of thread. The Windover bog had preserved the most complex sample of archaic fabric ever found in the Americas. And here is what is interesting. The weave of this cloth was recreated by Andrews. And she held it up, so this is what we think they were wearing on a daily basis. Then let me take a moment and see if I can share my screen here. Share my screen and share and go here and show you. So here it is. This is what she held up. Now this is made with twine, with very thick twine, to show you what the weave was. There was very complex weaves. There were lots of different weaves. So this is another example of this weave. So she said, the recreated fabric is made on a larger scale for analysis. If it were made as finely as the original, the weave would be almost invisible to the eye. It would be like the shirt I'm wearing. You wouldn't be able to see the web, the weave. Now, I mean, she said, makes the point, their fingers had a dexterity that modern fingers don't seem to have. They were superior to us. Their fingers could do things that our fingers can't do. Modern fingers aren't as good as 7,000-year-old fingers. What I'm suggesting is that we may not be actually superior to these people in any way. That the evolution, we ordinarily think of evolution as moving towards bigger brains and better and smarter, and we are better than they were. They were primitive. But I'm not sure that that's true. We may have more knowledge and more technology, but I don't know whether we're smarter or better. I believe that the ancient peoples may well have been superior to us in many ways, and that over the past 7,000 years, the human race has been inexorably moving towards extinction and decline. So that's it for this week. That's enough bad news for us. I'll see you again next week. Remember, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.